Welcome everyone to the riteSCAN webinar on the new Android UI and a quick customer snapshot on Anodyne Electronics Manufacturing. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sue Pogachnik and I'm the marketing manager here at RiteSoft and will be helping to moderate today's session. Ryan Winnicky, one of our RiteSoft implementation and support specialists, will be the presenter today. First, Ryan's going to share with you what happened when Anodyne implemented riteSCAN for sales order picking. Next, he'll talk about the hardware industry's migration to Android devices due to the pending sunset of Windows Mobile in 2020, as well as the benefits of the newer Android devices. After that, Ryan will point out the changes we've made to riteSCAN for the Android UI and then do a riteSCAN demo. Finally, at the end of the webinar, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. Feel free to submit your questions via the chat window at any time during the webinar. Again, if you have any technical issues, you can also let us know via the chat window. So we've got a full agenda today, so let's get started. Ryan?
All right, thank you very much, Sue, and welcome everyone today as we kick off this webinar and talk a little bit about one of our recent customers, Anodyne Electronics Manufacturing, based out of Canada. This company designs and manufactures specialized communication systems and products for the aerospace industry, plus illuminated panels and display products. They were actually founded in 2009. AEM provides products to operators, systems integrators, and OEMs around the globe. AEM is actually a Transport Canada approved manufacturer and maintenance organization that is ISO 9001 certified. So when we talk about what was the challenges that AEM faced that drove them to looking for a solution, in 2013, AEM used the FIFO inventory management method, which worked well for them, but they were tracking all of their items by dates and batches. So AEM quickly realized that they needed to create a more efficient way to manage traceability. At that point, they decided to barcode all of their items and implement the use of lots and serials with SYSPRO. Once this major project was completed, they purchased basic Bluetooth scanners and programmed them to work with simple automation that they developed in-house. Now, this solution worked for them, but AEM eventually realized that their process still had some inefficiencies that could be streamlined. Plus, something important was really missing out in their warehouse, and that was the data validation that takes place. They found it very difficult to do this outside of SYSPRO, specifically on the warehouse floor. The order picking process wasn't as efficient as it could have been because AEM really didn't have an automated method to check for errors at the time these transactions were actually happening out in the warehouse. AEM operators manually picked their sales order, and then they also manually checked the items picked against what was listed in SYSPRO. Now, a lot of different customers have these processes in place for order validation, and each order was specifically inspected via a time-consuming peer inspection process to ensure that the appropriate lots, serials, and quantities were actually being picked and shipped to the customers correctly. So an operator would actually pick an order, then request that another operator stop what they were working on to actually do that peer review inspection. The peer inspection time varied based on the order complexity, from 1 minute for a one-line order or 20 minutes for a line or an order that may contain 15 lines of different quantities, serial numbers, and lot numbers, which you can imagine is very challenging to really put a process that's going to validate that effectively in place. So when they really talked about being competitive in today's market, AEM knew that it was time to find an automated barcoding solution for their warehouse that was going to help them solve their problem. So they conducted a simple internet search for automated barcode solutions that work with SYSPRO, and that's really what led them to riteSCAN. AEM reviewed riteSCAN's functionality. They watched a number of riteSCAN videos, our training videos from our support portal, to see if the product would be a good fit for them. After that, AEM sought advice from their SYSPRO reps, who also recommended they implement riteSCAN and purchase the hardware devices directly from our partner MCAT. to send those devices preloaded and ready to go. So to get started and see how everything worked, they took it from a scope 1 perspective, and AEM deployed riteSCAN on a base model MC9000 device, which is one of the most common devices used out in the industry. AEM really budgeted for the MC92000 series devices, but they didn't make that initial purchase. So this is what also allowed them to take advantage of the ability to migrate their devices to riteSCAN Android. With the MC92000 series devices, they're dual compatible OS, which allows them to start with Windows Mobile 6.5 and then port them over to Android whenever they feel comfortable. AEM was really delighted with the process for implementation. It only took them 4 weeks of elapsed time to implement riteSCAN from start to finish. They were really impressed with the simplicity of riteSCAN to set up using the administration module and being able to manage it on their own to make changes and make adjustments to their process with the software as well. During the implementation process, AEM took advantage of the support portal, all of the how-to information and training videos for their operators to gain better insight into how to best utilize riteSCAN in their specific operations and get their workers up to speed on how to best do this. So during the first 2 weeks of using riteSCAN after going live, AEM experienced 0 sales order picking errors, which is tremendous. Moving from a process that was very cumbersome with many people involved, they were able to move to a 0 errors just in 2 weeks. So according to AEM's materials supervisor, Taylor Wiley, riteSCAN has really lived up to its promise of simplicity, fast implementation, and ease of use. He said, riteSCAN really helps prevent errors and sets our operators up for success. AEM's operators are also very pleased with how simple and intuitive riteSCAN is to use. They told us that riteSCAN screens flow how a person on the warehouse floor actually works. And that's what we really strive for with our products. AEM's original plan had been to test riteSCAN for about 3 months before eliminating their manual inspections and just doing random spot checks. Since everything has went so well, AEM may move to random spot checking much sooner than anticipated, and this will really help them improve their overall productivity and reduce their labor costs, not having to go through those inspections each time. So better yet, AEM also anticipates even a bigger significant savings as they roll out the use of riteSCAN for receiving POs. AEM will be able to scan the barcodes of their approved suppliers and manufacturer part numbers directly from the labels of their suppliers and compare that against SYSPRO and what they're using with riteSCAN. This is really going to allow them to seamlessly check in items, eliminating the manual checking and cross-reference process. And the AEM anticipates a major time savings of roughly about 40% in their PO receiving processes by implementing this type of solution. So when we talk about riteSCAN, as riteSCAN customers, you can be sure that we have our eye on simplicity when we enhance riteSCAN or develop new functionality. We really want to ensure that the function is easy to use for the operators out on the warehouse floor, designed for them specifically with each of the transactions that they're performing in mind. And it's also got to be easy to maintain and administer. Being able to do that on your own, being able to make adjustments is really key to that. The other key to this is we make sure it's fast to implement. Now, when we talk about implementation, a lot of times people think initial implementation, but there isn't just the initial implementation of riteSCAN. It's an ongoing process. Being able to implement new modules into your process flows, being able to implement new features into your process flows are all key things as a customer that you're going to want to take advantage of as you continue to grow with the product. The other key to that part is it's backed by our service and support. You're not alone in the process of upgrading the system or taking advantage of new features. You have our team of support that is here to help you with any questions, process related, product related, how I may implement this with SYSPRO. All of that is there for you. We also have our support portal to provide you training resources and videos as new features are released or enhancements are coming out with the products as well. So with that being said, let's talk about what's going on with riteSCAN right now. The market is really changing for software and hardware devices among many industries, and manufacturing is really no exception to that. With the sunset of Windows Mobile pending within the next 2 years, the market is transitioning to Android mobile devices that are much more cost effective. These devices, more than half of the devices shipping from the two major suppliers, Honeywell and Zebra, are Android based. They also have devices that have dual OS capabilities, allowing you to start out with Windows and move over to Android as well. They also provide a lot more features from a hardware perspective, being able to swap the OS on the devices, being able to scan up to 70 feet, the longer battery life. They're much more effective and ergonomical to a lightweight device that you can go around the warehouse with. They also have 2D capabilities to take advantage of the smart scan capabilities of riteSCAN as well if you're looking at implementing 2D barcode labels. All of these enhancements are really no wonder why the market is moving towards Android, providing you more features and more functionality with the hardware devices at a lower price point. So with that being said, let's take a look at changes that we've made to riteSCAN for the Android UI as we gear up for this. As a first step, we're updating the riteSCAN product to be compatible with Android devices, and this will result in a number of user interface changes as well. We've kept a very similar modular organization from the screens and the icons that are organized there. Operators can simply navigate between these areas just as they did before and quickly move around the product into the different areas that they want to interact as well, really giving them a consistent process flow if they're using the old Windows Mobile 6.5 versions or if they're using the new Android devices. So as we transition, we're really providing the simple data that's required by operators to effectively perform transactions out on the warehouse floor, giving them access to more details when necessary, being able to drill into the information. Now, they don't always need to know the details. They want to know what's most relevant to them. And that's what we're displaying on screen, what's most relevant to them. But they do also have the ability to drill into more information. If I need to know specifically the default bins, or I need to know specifically what other locations, or any specific information about a stock code or a location or a sales order, I have access to all of that information at my fingertips by an on-screen touch of a button to gain access to that insight. So if you're not familiar with Smart Scan, this is one of the features that really can be beneficial to you in your operations as you look at how can I streamline my operations one step further. This feature allows you to capture multiple pieces of data in one simple scan and one barcode. So if you're not familiar, for example, the way that it works, if you want to scan an item, let's take an example, a lot traceable stock code. You want to set up a barcode for that product or item out on the warehouse floor, and that barcode is going to contain the stock code, the lot number, and the quantity all within one single barcode. And what this allows you to do in riteSCAN is we're able to automatically map those fields into the correct fields of riteSCAN when I'm performing a transaction. So for example, if I'm doing a warehouse transfer, I can select on screen my Smart Scan button, and I can scan that label, and riteSCAN's automatically going to know what stock code, what lot number, and what quantity we're moving with that transaction. And this really allows the operator, rather than having to scan 3 separate barcodes or do 3 separate things, to scan one barcode to perform the transaction that they need to. So it can really help streamline your operations and provide a much better workflow for your operators that are doing this day in and day out with their inventory. So for customers taking advantage of these capabilities of Smart Scan, they can now really, what we've changed with the Android product is they can easily access Smart Scan on screen at any time by simply tapping the screen. For any transaction that they're performing, they can get to Smart Scan very quickly and very easily, allowing them to bounce back and forth between maybe sometimes I'm using a Smart Scan label when it's a box, and maybe other times when it's an individual each product. I may be using the regular stock code barcode, and it allows you to go in between those workflows however you'd like to balance those. Other things that we're doing as we're developing out the Android platform, you're going to notice changes to the organization of the user interface in a few different areas as well. The benefit is that we've really kept the same concept of the existing workflows of riteSCAN for the operator, but some fields may have been reorganized to really help the operators better perform their jobs even one step further on the Android platform. Android, it really opens the door from a product perspective, being able to provide you much more flexibility. All of the buttons that are still commonly used are able to be drilled into if I want to do an inventory query, a bin query, or see all of the available lots. That's still all there and available for the operators that need that information on screen at the times they need it. So now that I've kind of talked you through some of the primary changes that we've made, what I'd like to do is spend a good amount of time actually going through a product demo and showing you the product on one of our new devices that we have here. The device I'm going to be showing it to you on today is an MC3300 device. It's a Zebra model device. It's very lightweight with a number of different options and versions. But we're just going to dive into this product demo and give you a look at the new Android platform. All right, so now you guys should be able to see the actual Android screen. So just so you guys are aware, I actually am using the physical Android device in front of me right now, and you guys are able to see my screen. The way that I'm actually doing this today is through a product called SODI, Mobi Control, which allows you to manage all of your different devices, to access them, push updates, all within one central platform. So if you've been looking for a solution like that, definitely give us a holler. It's a great product as well. So the very first thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is log in just as I would typically. I can also configure this screen if you already have defaults in here. You can have those defaults still set up. Log into your companies. The very first menu you're going to notice is giving you all the different areas of the product, just as you would have seen before with inventory, orders, manufacturing, utilities as well. Those are all accessible. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is the inventory tab. So I'm just going to go into a inventory query here. I can go ahead and scan my stock code. You're going to see I can select the details to find more about this stock code and give me all of the information that I may need to access. One of the other things you're going to notice is how touch-friendly these devices are. Really built for the products that, let's try to reload that. Sorry, guys. Must have had it open too long. There we go. All right, so we're going to zoom in a little bit so you can see the screen better. There we go. So on this screen, you're going to notice that you see all of your available warehouses. You can filter this down if I just want to look for warehouses that contain E. If I'm a multi-bin warehouse, I can also select my warehouse to see all of my different bin locations here. I can drill into each of the bin locations to gain more details about the quantity on hand, the quantity available, if there's any on hold quantities. It really gives you access to drill in as far as you want to go for the detailed information, all from the same screen, and allowing you to back out and gain that access to that information. One of the other things we're going to take a look at from this screen is what does a stock take look at? Of course, there's a few different ways that you can perform a stock take, whether you're using the increase or the replace method, and this can all be locked down just as before. You're going to also notice I now have Smart Scan at the top of my screen. So I can select Smart Scan and I can scan my barcode for Smart Scan right into there. If I don't want to use Smart Scan, I can go to the natural way of just scanning my warehouse that I want to perform a stock take in, my bin location, and then go ahead and scan the stock code for the capture as well. You're going to notice it brings up my details. I can select my quantity or scan my quantity that I'd like to count and select post. It's as quick as that to go through your stock take process and begin counting your next location, your next stock code, all on screen here with the Android platform. So a lot of these modules, you're not going to see big changes, big sweeping changes. It's going to be very similar workflow, bringing the operators through that transaction. With the warehouse transfer, it's going to be very similar as well. I can go ahead and scan my stock code that I want to transfer. I can put in my quantity that I'd like to move. If you have quantities barcoded, some people have quantities barcoded, others will manually enter them. It's going to work the same whether I'm using that keyboard on hand or if I'm manually entering it with an on-screen keyboard as well. One thing to keep in mind with some of the Android devices now, some of them that are getting smaller, so kind of like the cell phone style devices, they're going to have an on-screen keyboard. So when I go into a quantity field, for example, riteSCAN is going to prompt a quantity keyboard or a numeric keyboard versus a text keyboard and so on. All those little features and functions that are built in now just take place naturally within the system. So we're going to go ahead and scan the warehouse that we're moving it from and the bin location. And then we're going to go ahead and scan the warehouse that we're moving it to. So we can scan our warehouse, select post, and it's as simple as that. And we're doing a warehouse transfer and could go ahead and do the next one at that point as well. All of your options and features for your different modules are available up in the top right corner. You're able to change your palette mode. If you're utilizing palettes, I can go into single palette mode from here and go right back into the module as well. All of that's accessible right from that screen. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is what a PO purchase order receipt looks like in riteSCAN as well. So we're going to go ahead and pull up our purchase order receipt module here, and we're going to scan our PO to receive. It's going to bring in each of the line items to receive in. So you're going to be able to select that information on screen if I'd like to. So if I wanted to receive in line 1, A100 here, I can select it from the screen and then simply scan in my quantity that I'd like to receive. And I can put my bin location that I want to receive it to as well. Now, if you have default bins set up, all of that information can still be brought in naturally. It'll bring that information in and we can go ahead and save that line. If I want to receive the next line, I can go ahead and scan my next stock code that I'd like to receive in. Put in our quantity that we'd like to receive. Oops, I got to scan the right barcode. And then our bin location as well. As soon as I do that, I'm able to save that line and post that transaction to do the PO receipt at that time. That's going to walk you through the PO receiving. If you have printing set up, we can walk through what it looks like to do printing as well. If we pull up that same PO, we're going to scan our stock code to receive in, select post, make sure you put your bin location in. It's going to require that information. We're going to post that, and it's going to ask me to print my labels. So just as before, you're able to select the number of copies, and it's going to give you an example of what it's printing there. If I have multiple label formats, I can select which label format I want to print on this screen as well, and go ahead and print those labels at that time. The next thing we're going to take a look at is the sales order picking process. Being able to actually perform a sales order pick. We're going to scan our sales order number that we'd like to pick. Now you're going to notice that I still have all of my link labels. These link labels can be customized as to what information is shown on screen. For example, you'll see I can see the sales order number, the customer number, the customer name, and the order date is what I have shown on mine, along with the status. If we would like to release the order, I can actually select the release order from on screen, and that's going to update the status of the order if I'd like it to be changed. We can go ahead and scan our stock code that we'd like to receive in or pick for this order. It's going to bring in my quantity automatically. I can put in the bin location that I want to pull it from, post that transaction. And now I'm going to have, if I take a look at this order, I can see that I only have one line item left to receive. That's my A101 at this time. And I can go ahead and do the same transaction there. Some of the other things that you can do from this screen here, we're going to take a look at what does the manufacturing tab look like. So if you're using the manufacturing modules, there's a few different ways to use them, whether I'm using kit issue with job receipts or if I'm issuing materials using the single material issues. There's a few different workflows now that we've built into the system, including pallet tracking, which I'm going to cover here in just a minute as well. So let's go ahead and we're going to do a standard job issue at this time. You're going to scan the job that you want to issue materials to. I can go ahead and look at details in regards to this job. It's going to show me each of the material allocations on screen here. So you can see each of the material allocations. And if you need to drill into details, you can select that as well. We're going to go ahead and just scan our stock code, B113. Put our bin location that we want to pull that from. And we can go ahead and receipt that to the job at that time as well. So with the job issue, that's going to be a single material issues process. I do want to show you one other thing that we've introduced called pallet staging as well. So if we go into our pallet staging module here, I can actually create a new pallet by scanning the pallet ID that I want to create. It's going to warn me that this is a new pallet, not an existing pallet. Select the warehouse location that we want this pallet to be in, along with the bin location if it's multi-bin. And we're going to stage this pallet for WIP. What that means is I'm going to stage a pallet for this specific job. I can scan the job that I'd like to stage it for, and we're going to select Start to build this pallet. This is going to guide me through a list of items to actually pick to build for this specific job. So it's your job WIP pick list or your bill of materials pick list for this specific job. Now I can select them from on screen if I'd like to, or I can actually individually scan the stock codes that I want to pick to this. I can select my quantity that I want to pick, go ahead and pick that, and it's going to be added to the pallet. I can go ahead and do the same process. So if I want to pick a B113, let's scan our quantity and go ahead and pick that. Now at this point, what you can do is you can view the contents of pallets, or at this point I can select Done. When I select Done, there's a few different things that I can do with this pallet. I can just save this pallet and leave it in inventory just as it is. I can do a transfer to a new warehouse or a new bin location. If you guys use staging bin locations for WIP, or you have a staging warehouse for WIP, you could move it to that new location and it's going to move all of the contents on that pallet. You can also actually issue the materials directly to the job from here as well by selecting Job Issue, and it allows you to issue all of those materials to the job directly that are contained within that pallet. So we're going to go ahead and just save this pallet for the time being. And you can go back and begin building a new pallet if you'd like to. There's a few different methods for what I'd like to build for a pallet. So if you want to just build a pallet for inventory, you can do that. You can build a pallet for WIP, or you can build a pallet for a specific sales order. And what each of those are going to do is allow you to guide the operator through the process of creating that pallet in your inventory at that time. The final thing we're going to take a look at here is the actual job receipting process. So receipting finished goods into inventory. So we're going to select the job receipt module here, and we're going to scan our job that we want to receipt into inventory. It's going to bring in our quantity to make at that point, and we're going to go ahead and post this transaction. You're going to notice it brings me directly into the kit issue screen. I can see all of the outstanding material allocations to be issued for this job, and it's going to go ahead and kit issue all of those materials and do the job receipt transaction, allowing me to now print my finished goods labels at this time as well. Select print, and it'll print those finished good labels. So with that being said, that gives you a quick tour of the new riteSCAN Android module and what it looks like, some of the differences, some of the similarities to the previous Windows versions as well. You're not going to see big sweeping changes, but you do notice some changes throughout the workflows, the different modules, how some of the things are organized as well. With that being said, we're going to go back here. We do have the new riteSCAN Android version available for early adopters. So if you have Android devices or you're interested in getting Android devices to start taking a look at how it may be implemented into your operations, please reach out to our team. You can email riteSCAN@ritesoft.com and request that. Just put in a request that you'd like access to the new riteSCAN Android version, and we'll get that out to you guys as well. If you have specific questions about hardware, please feel free to send us a message as well. We can definitely guide you in the right direction and get you in contact with some of our hardware specialists to be able to guide you on some of the new different devices for Android, some of the recommended and more popular Android devices as well. So when we're talking about riteSCAN, what we really focused on today was what's going on with riteSCAN and our new Android release. So as a riteSCAN customer, you can also be confident that we're going to continue to enhance the riteSCAN product to really meet your changing business needs along the way. Some of the enhancements that we've made to riteSCAN in the last year include the addition of pallet tracking functionality, the pallet staging modules, the new order picking module, providing you more workflows and more automation processes that you can create for your specific order picking processes in your warehouse. Also, the ability to capture custom form fields. We're constantly doing different new plugins for customers to really help them solve their business challenges that may be specific to them. As well, we introduced the new Spanish and Chinese language packs that are compatible with riteSCAN as well. So there's lots of things that we've been doing over the year to really introduce new functionality and new features into riteSCAN. And we're going to continue to do so based off of our customers' feedback and new features that we can really help to provide our customers of even better product. Right now, we're currently developing several major enhancements to riteSCAN that include administration reports for riteSCAN, being able to do some reporting within the riteSCAN admin application, the ability to introduce kit picking for sales order reserve, and back order release, providing you the ability, if you're using S or K type kits with SYSPRO, being able to provide a workflow to your operators to effectively pick those kits as well. Along with the new back order release module, providing you a utility to effectively do a back order release within riteSCAN as well. Those are just a few of the bigger things that we're planning to introduce yet by the end of the year. And we're constantly listening to our customers for some of the next things that we can introduce into our product as well. With that being said, we're going to go into some Q&A here if you guys have any questions.
All right, we'll give people a second here to ask some questions. The first question here, Ryan, relates to Android. Will riteSCAN still work with our current hardware?
So the way that Android works, depending on the hardware you have, some hardware is actually dual OS compatible, depending when you purchase that and who you purchase it through. If you do have the devices, typically it's the MC92NO, so those are probably the more popular ones that are dual OS that I've worked with. Yes, you can convert those over. A lot of the older devices, if you're using a Windows Mobile 5 or Windows Mobile 6 or CE6 or older, those aren't going to be compatible typically to convert over to Android. You would want to look at new devices then.
Okay. This also relates to upgrading. Will the new Android client be available in my current version of riteSCAN, or am I going to need to upgrade?
You will need to upgrade to the latest version of riteSCAN, so that is one thing you're going to want to consider. If you haven't upgraded riteSCAN before, it's not a huge process. It's definitely something our support team or you can do yourself. But you will need to upgrade to the latest version of riteSCAN to be compatible with Android.
Okay. Ryan, earlier in the presentation when you were talking about AEM and their use of riteSCAN, you mentioned lot traceability and the importance of the validation. How does riteSCAN validate the lot numbers?
So It really can validate your lot numbers in a few different ways. SYSPRO's has a lot of different methods for how they allow you to set up sales orders, whether I'm using back order release, if I'm using ship, if I'm using dispatch notes. I could also be using sales order reserve. And what riteSCAN really allows you to do is be flexible in working with each of those different methodologies. So for example, some of our customers, AEM in particular, they supply the lot numbers and validate those ahead of it. So when the order is created, their lot numbers are already assigned to the order, and they need to validate that those lot numbers. So riteSCAN ensures that the order lot number that was assigned to the order is also validated against that order, that the operator picked that exact lot number as well in that process. So there's a number of different ways you can set up riteSCAN to validate lot numbers, validate bin locations and serial numbers, or supply them at that time as well if you allow your operators to pick any lot number and you just need to supply that to SYSPRO.
Okay, and just one more question regarding sales order picking. You had mentioned being able to AEM with scanning the supplier's barcode. How does riteSCAN make that happen?
So riteSCAN actually, what they do is there's a few different ways you can set up cross references, is what they're called. And you want to have these cross references set up within SYSPRO. A lot of customers already may have that set up in SYSPRO. And when you turn that on in riteSCAN, it's able to identify, if I scan my vendor's barcode, for example, I know that that's automatically going to convert to this stock code in my inventory of SYSPRO. And riteSCAN allows you to set up those cross references to be able to convert that automatically. So as an operator out on the warehouse floor, when I'm doing a PO receipt and I scan my supplier's barcode, because of course they're sending me their products with their barcodes on it, I know that that's going to convert to this barcode in my inventory at that time as well. So you can set all of that up with cross references within SYSPRO and riteSCAN.
Okay, well, it looks like that is the end of our questions that we have.
All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's time today. And if you have questions on Android or anything else with riteSCAN, please feel free to reach out to myself or anyone from our team. Our contact information is there, and we definitely would be glad to help you out. Have a great day, everyone.